Welcome friends to the Touch Art channel. Today we continue to get acquainted with the great French artist Nicolas Poussin. The most interesting and significant paintings of the artist, according to leading painting experts, will be presented in this video. Also, for those who haven't watched it, we recommend watching the first video, which describes the beginning of Nicolas Poussin's career and presents many wonderful paintings dedicated to mythology, religion, natural landscapes, and, of course, beautiful female figures. A lot of interesting things await us ahead. Let's go. In the spring of 1624, Nicolas Poussin arrived in Rome, from which point his career as an artist began. At this time, many French artists were in Rome, including Claude Lorrain. Despite all the disagreements with French painters, it was this environment that allowed Poussin, who spent almost his entire subsequent life in Rome, to preserve his national roots and traditions. At first, Poussin communicated with two sculptors with whom he shared a studio, Jacques Stella and Alessandro Algardi. In 1626, Pierre Mellon and the brothers François and Jérôme Duquesnoy lived in his workshop. Poussin was especially close friends with Claude Lorrain. Poussin also communicated with the architectural landscape painter Jean Lemaire, with whom he later painted the Louvre. This circle was united by an affinity for classical antiquity. In Rome, Poussin, who had achieved some fame in his homeland, again had to start all over again. For the first 2 years, Poussin was deprived of patrons. Cavalier Marino recommended the Frenchman to Cardinal Francesco Barberini. In 1626, the account books of Cardinal Francesco Barberini first recorded the name of Poussin in connection with receiving a fee for the painting The Destruction of Jerusalem. It has not survived, but in 1638 the master repeated the canvas, which is now stored in Vienna. The painting The Destruction of Jerusalem, commissioned by a high patron, became the first significant work of the Italian period. But later Poussin lost his patrons. His financial situation became critical. To top all his troubles, Poussin was severely wounded in a street fight, almost depriving him of the opportunity to paint. Poussin found himself in a situation of time pressure when, forced to earn a living, he could not afford to leisurely comprehend new artistic impressions. Poussin feverishly mastered the techniques and methods of monumental painting, which he had not studied in France. He resumed his studies in anatomy with the surgeon Larcher, and painted models at the Domenichino Academy, and worked intensively in the open air on the Capitol or in the gardens. His primary interest was ancient ruins and sculptures. In addition to the sketches he made all his life, Poussin measured ancient statues. On the back of the drawing Victory of Joshua, the results of measurements of Apollo Belvedere are preserved. Poussin did not seek to replenish the lost fragments of ancient sculptures, which was common at that time. During the Roman period, the artist began to learn sculpting and, in addition to painting copies of exemplary works of art, began to make wax models. Thus, his copies of Titian's Bacchanalia remained, not only in oil, but also in the form of a bas-relief, executed together with one of the Duquesnoy brothers. Eugène Delacroix, who first drew attention to this method, noted that Poussin also needed the figures to achieve the correct shadows. For his paintings, he also made wax figures, draped them in fabric and arranged them in the desired order on the board. This method was not Poussin's invention, but was hardly used in his time. Poussin's Renaissance interests focused on the works of Raphael and Titian. The artist copied engravings from paintings and frescoes by Raphael in his homeland, and he did not abandon this practice in Italy. The sketches showed that he also carefully studied the originals in the Vatican stanzas and the Villa Farnesina. The painting Parnassus was clearly executed under the influence of the frescoes of Stanza della Segnatura. Since ancient painting in Poussin's time was practically unknown, and sculptures and reliefs only indirectly helped compositional decisions. Standards of measure and rhythm were sought in Raphael's works. At the same time, plastic forms and lines dominated in Raphael's painting. Poussin's respect for the color schemes of the Venetian classic testifies to the extreme breadth of artistic interests and flexibility of thinking. Poussin remained completely indifferent to the legacy of Michelangelo and Tintoretto. Poussin's first surviving Roman paintings are battle scenes, albeit based on Old Testament subjects. The first surviving receipt from Poussin himself for a painting with various figures is dated January 23, 1628. It is possible that this is one of the bacchanalia in which the artist perfected himself. In the surviving works adjacent to the battles, Poussin's compositions are similarly devoid of depth, and their foreground is overloaded with figures. The master's development is obvious. Several bacchanalia demonstrate the subtlety of color schemes, a clear influence of the Venetian school. The first important commission of this period was the martyrdom of Saint Erasmus for the Cathedral of St. Peter's, the main temple of the Catholic Church. In St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, a mosaic version of Poussin's painting has been preserved. It is located in the altar of the Cathedral Chapel of the Holy Mysteries with the reliquary of the saint. The plot of the painting, The Death of Germanicus, is based on the second book of Tacitus's Annals. This painting marks a turning point in Poussin's work. Subsequently, he invariably presented the ancient theme in a moral dimension. The year 1630 was marked by serious changes for Poussin, both in his creative and personal life. After his first successes in altar painting, he was unable to receive an order to paint the Chapel of the Immaculate Conception in the Church of San Luigi dei Francesi. After this, the French artist decisively abandoned the monumental genre and completely switched to the so-called cabinet painting, designed for private customers. Even earlier, around 1629, the artist became seriously ill and was nursed by the family of the French pastry chef Charles Duguay. Having recovered, he became engaged to Duguay's eldest daughter, Anne-Marie. The wedding took place on September 1, 1630, in the Church of San Lorenzo in Lucena. Having married, Poussin remained to live in the same house on the Rue Paulina, which he had occupied since the mid-1620s. Anne-Marie Poussin's brother, Gaspard Duguay, a future famous landscape painter, lived with the Poussins, and from 1636, so did his younger brother Jean. Poussin became the first teacher of Gaspard Duguay, who then took his surname. Poussin's marriage was successful. Although childless, Poussin was earning good money at that time. His paintings began to be valued, and many wanted to have at least a repetition. A certain Caroselli was engaged in painting copies of Poussin's paintings. In 1632, Poussin was elected a member of the Academy of St. Luke. Even earlier, in 1630, thanks to senior patrons Cassiano del Pozzo and Giulio Rospigliosi, Poussin found a powerful patron in the person of Cardinal Camillo Massimo. They collaborated with the cardinal until the artist left for Paris. The 1630s were extremely fruitful in Poussin's legacy. The Plague at Ashdod was one of Poussin's notable successes of that time. A copy was made of the painting in Rome, and Bellori included its description in the artist's biography. One of the most mysterious paintings for Poussin's descendants and researchers was the Arcadian Shepherds, commissioned by Cardinal Giulio Rospigliosi. For his educated customers, Poussin painted a significant number of paintings on ancient mythological and literary themes, such as Narcissus and Echo, Louvre, Selene and Endymion, Detroit, Institute of Arts, and a series of paintings based on Torquato Tasso's poem Jerusalem Liberated, Armida and Rinaldo, Tancred and Armenia. Having achieved success in a foreign land, the artist acquired many customers in his homeland. Among them was the famous Cardinal Richelieu, who bought several paintings by Poussin. The painter was promised favorable conditions if he agreed to return to France. When Poussin's fame finally reached his homeland, he received an invitation from Louis XIII and in 1640 was forced to return to Paris for a while. He became the first court painter. In Paris, the master became unusually successful. The work by Nicolas Poussin for the chapel in the Palace of Saint-Germain was ordered at the personal request of King Louis XIII, who subsequently acquired the painting Manna from Heaven for his personal collection. In Paris, Poussin created such works as the Eucharist, the Miracle of Saint Francis Xavier, both in the Louvre, and Time Saves Truth from the Encroachments of Envy and Discord, Lily, Museum of Fine Arts. The latter was painted by order of Cardinal Richelieu and was intended to decorate the ceiling. Life at the royal court weighed heavily on Poussin. Having fulfilled his obligations, in 1642 Poussin returned to his beloved Rome. His skill reaches its apogee. Epicurean motifs are practically disappearing. The artist is increasingly interested in ancient themes and paints landscapes. In the 1640s to 1650s, Poussin's color scheme, built on several local colors, became increasingly sparing. The main emphasis is on drawing, sculptural forms, and plastic completeness. Lyrical spontaneity disappears from the paintings. Landscapes remain the best of the late Poussin. The artist looks for harmony in nature. Man is interpreted primarily as a part of nature. The master was the creator of the classic, ideal landscape in its heroic form. The heroic landscape, like any classic landscape, by Poussin is not real nature, but improved nature, composed by the artist, because only in this form is it worthy of being the subject of depiction in art. His landscape expresses a feeling of involvement in eternity, reflection on existence. In the last years of his life, Poussin created a cycle of paintings, The Seasons, 1660 to 1665, which has a symbolic meaning and personifies the periods of earthly human existence. In 1664, the artist suffered great grief, his wife died. The same date appears on the last remaining unfinished work, Apollo and Daphne, which was subsequently acquired by the Louvre. The brilliant painter died a year after the death of his wife, in September 1665. With you is the Touch Art channel and the work of the French artist Nicolas Poussin. If you liked the video, don't forget to join our community of lovers of great art. Thank you.